A while back, a commenter asked me if I knew about the Atlanta teaching scandal. Yes, I know all about the Atlanta teaching scandal and about how the grades were fixed. But I also know that while those African American teachers were caught, many white teachers slipped right by the radar. And these white female teachers do more damage than your Atlanta teaching scandal would ever do. I have a family member who worked in education on the K to 3 level, and she saw firsthand how these teachers, on a regular basis, fudged many numbers to promote kids to different grades, even though they had not comprehended the material. And these white teachers, for years, have been getting away with this, and the Negro has just pretty much given it a pass. They just pretty much will not say a single word about any of these white female teachers who will promote your son or your daughter to the next grade and pretty much know this child has not mastered the material. But they will do this because they want to get the numbers and keep the school open. Because what a lot of people don't know is that your schools remain open based on the number of students that pass to the next grade. Otherwise, if you don't pass kids, your school will wind up getting a failing grade and then it will be closed. And here in New York, when they close a school, what they do is they terminate the principal or they transfer the principal to another position. They make all the teachers reapply for all their jobs, or they bring in new teachers, and then they create a new school. And under the new leadership of a new principal and a group of new teachers, we parents think they're getting a new school, but in actuality, the same old policies remain in place. And these policies are designed to ruin your children because these standards that they want kids to meet, which is like a level in reading, they usually want a level J or a level 16 or a level 17 for first grade, or the same thing, and then a level, 20 something or 30 something for the second grade. And a lot of kids, they usually don't meet the mark. And what some of these white female teachers will do is they will inflate the child's grade and say that they can read on a certain level when in actuality they can't read on that level. And when the new teacher in the next grade gets them, usually they find out the hard way that this child really can't read on that level and they can't do math on that level. And that's what my family member found out on a regular basis when she was working with different kids in different classrooms over the years. The kids that she would get that would come on the next grade from a white female teacher, they would say that this kid was like a level 16 or a level 17, but in actuality, the kid wasn't actually a level 10 or an 11. And that's all due to this white female teacher inflating the child's grades and moving them up to levels that they're not supposed to be on. And what my family member would do is try to get the child actually on the level that they're supposed to be, and she would have to take extra time to go into helping this child. And sadly, you know, she usually in most cases got the kids up to that level, but the whole thing is that the structures that is remain there are after she gets them to the next grade. After the kid goes to the next grade, which is the third or the fourth grade, the fudging continues, and all of this fudging, eventually hits the fan. Usually at the level where people start taking these citywide and statewide tests. And this is where we really start to see kids start to hit the wall because all the fudging that is done from K1 to, you know, done to inflate these children's grades is what happens is the kid takes the test, they hit the wall, and then, you know, in some cases they wind up getting left back at the third grade level, and in most cases the third grade teacher usually gets the blame for all of this mess. But in actuality, these white female teachers have been fudging numbers from the kindergarten level, saying that children are reading at a certain level when they're not reading at that level at all, and they're doing math at a certain level, and they're not doing math at that level at all. So a lot of people will sit there and say the black female teachers in the Atlanta were, a small part of the problem. No, the white female teachers are 10 times as dangerous because no one knows what they're doing in the classroom. Nobody cares what they're doing in the classroom. Everything that they're doing pretty much gets a pass. The black female teachers who are punished are no longer part of the system and are no longer a threat, but they all, both black and white, are following the roles of administrators who only want to get numbers so that they can continue to make money off of Negro children. For them, school is a money making institution, and they don't care about your kids being able to make the grade. All they want to do is make profits. So, if even if your child doesn't do well, they will push them to the next grade. And in many cases, in inner city neighborhoods, which have a lot of single mothers in them, the single mothers are just happy to hear that their kids are doing well. They don't look at, do they have comprehension of skills. All they want to hear is, you know, Johnny's doing well in school and that he's doing okay. They look at the report card and see all the A's on it, not understanding that this child has no, mastery of skills and no mastery of comprehension. And if you put a book in front of this child, they wouldn't be able to read it, or even worse, wouldn't be able to explain it to you. And this is what, goes over the heads of many Negroes in the African American community regarding education. They look at the window dressing of this white female teacher and they think that this is a positive thing, not understanding that, she's not providing you with all the services you're supposed to have. What this white female teacher is doing in most cases is she's just pushing your child to the next grade and not, regard and just to collect a paycheck. And this happened quite a lot at the school my family member worked at for many years. Kids were just being pushed through. There were some that would learn. You would get maybe one or two good teachers, like my family member, and other teachers who did care and would take the time to give the kids, extra help and try to give them extra guidance. But then there were other teachers who would just lie so they could make their numbers so that the school wouldn't look bad. And their concern really was about making these schools not look bad. And the whole thing is that if the child doesn't know, the child doesn't know. And the school is supposed to be there to meet the needs of the child. It's not supposed to be about numbers. Because what happened with here in New York with the education system, we want to blame the teachers for a lot of these students failing, but we don't really want to look at this home. And what I learned from my family member who worked in education, both of them, one who worked on the high school level and one who works on the college level, is that these homes are totally screwed up, especially a lot of these single parent, female headed homes. And the kids are not getting the proper nutrition, the proper sleep, proper diet, and that has a direct impact on the education that your children receive. I mean, the teacher can provide you with the facts and the figures, but if your head is not in the game, then you're not going to be able to get the education you need. And in the case of a lot of these inner city neighborhoods, the kids, they come in completely dysfunctional, and then people are expecting them to perform just like a kid who is completely functional. And the sad part is, even with all the government services people provide, these kids still can't perform. And then a lot of teachers wind up in a logjam, so they start fudging numbers, and they won't do like my family member did, which is buckle down and try to help this child get to grade level. What they will do is they will just, if he's reading at a 10, they'll say he's reading at a 12. Then they'll say, if the child gets to 12, they'll actually put the child on level 14. And if it's towards the end of the year, they'll fudge it up again to about a level 15 or 16 if that's the standard. And this is what is done in your public schools on a regular basis. And a lot of people think that, Atlanta, where they cheated on tests, that's saying something bad about black women. No, what's happening with these white women is twice as dangerous, because that's what leads to other people having to fudge on these tests, because people push these kids through from the K to 2 level, and then when they took the third grade test, people are winding up fudging the numbers because all the numbers have been fudged from the kindergarten level. And then when they get past that level and they get up to the 7th grade level, they wind up fudging it again, because again, these schools don't want to look bad. They don't want to get closed. People don't want to wind up losing their jobs, and they don't want to wind up having their careers tarnished based on bad numbers. So what they do is they find ways around the system and game the system in order to get those numbers. And when you have large groups of white female teachers, and you have neighborhoods with Negro and Hispanic and other ethnicity children, this fudging goes on a regular basis. And a lot of people don't know how much fudging is going on regarding their child's education and the real numbers. It's not until you take that child outside and you ask them to do a simple math problem, or you take a simple YA book and you put it in front of your child and you ask them to read that book to you backwards and forwards, that you start seeing that the education that they received is of the poorest quality. And this is something that most people will not, address or take a long, hard look at. They'll say that, oh, the black female teachers were just as bad, but no. With a black female teacher, you may get a better chance at getting your child an education, because when I was going to school with mostly black female teachers, they would take the effort, to try to help that child, or like my family member would do, go the extra mile and try to help that child achieve. Whereas with your white female teacher, they really don't have a vested interest in this child. They really don't have a personal connection. I'm not saying all white female teachers are like this, but the ones that my family member worked with were like this. And all they wanted to do was get the numbers. They didn't care about the students and, helping them reach those grade levels and for themselves. And, we lose a lot of good, passionate people like that due to this system and these administrators, because a lot of these administrators are just so focused on numbers that the students slip through the cracks. And a lot of these kids, what happens is after they leave the middle school level, they hit the high school level and they hit a wall. And this is where your dropout rate, starts to fly through the roof, because these kids from K to 8, they've had their grades fudged, they've had their numbers fudged. Some people have fudged the citywide test for them, they've pushed them through, and then they hit grade 9, and then it's just like hitting a wall. What happens is they start running into, hard concepts like your algebra, your science. They start hitting English, having to deal with novels and English literature, and they start to crumble into dust. And this has been, a big problem in your public school system. But a lot of people, they just look at these teachers, the white female teachers, and they give them a pass. And then they'll say, we have to hold everybody else accountable. And this is not the case. This is why I say we need more black female teachers, because at least they have, some of them will be passionate and will have a vested interest, especially if they live in the community and they're a part of the community, because people who live in the community will understand that, when you teach kids in the community, they need to get the best education possible. They need to earn their grades, and they need the tools that they need to move forward. But I see, what happened with these white female teachers at my family members, elementary school, and it showed me, how dysfunctional your public schools are. I mean, how these kids are just getting pushed through, and many of these single mothers have absolutely no idea that their child is dumb as a box of rocks, and until they hit that grade 7 level or that grade 8 level, and they're talking about how they want to drop out of school. And a lot of these kids, what's happening is this is why a lot of your kids are, they act out when they're in school, because they get frustrated because they can't do a lot of these subjects like writing, because there's a lot of writing now in public school, and they don't even know how to write sentences. I mean, they want them to write sentences, but they don't even know words. This is a lot of the backward stuff that's going on in the public school due to this dysfunctional Lucy Calkins system. They want you to learn how to write a sentence and a paragraph before you know your alphabet and words. And this is stuff that, many parents aren't taking the time to take a closer look at. They're not taking the time to examine what type of curriculum that is being taught to your children. And these are a whole bunch of things that people just aren't taking that, long, hard look at regarding your public schools. And this is partially one of the reasons why so many teachers feel that they have to fudge numbers to meet these standards. But your public school system, A lot of people think that these white female teachers are doing them some good, but in actuality, they're just window dressing so that you won't go out and protest. Because a lot of these Negroes, what happens with them is that they've got a bad case of cognitive distortion, and when they see a white face, they think that it has a higher value. When you have white female teachers teaching your kids, they're going to get a better education. But in actuality, they're not being educated at all. All they're being is warehoused and pushed through to the next grade. And after they're being pushed through to the next grade, you know, they're being sent out here. And if I look at the bigger picture, like I do, when you have people like President Obama, proposing to send these kids all the way to junior college, first 2 years of college. This is all part of another part of a plan to continue to push your kids through until they get to the college level, and then they really start to fall apart. Because the whole thing with the public school system is that everybody knows that it's pretty much broken. No matter what efforts you do to fix it, it just continues to get more and more broken. And then what they want to do is push these kids all the way through, from elementary all the way through high school, and then watch them fall apart in college. And this is what's happening. What my other family member has been seeing on a regular basis in the college situation. He told me that the new group that they're getting in, everybody is scared of, because most of these people can't even read. They can't write a paragraph. They're just not equipped for college at all. And he's afraid that their program may lose some funding because these kids are not going to be able to produce. They're not going to be able to perform. And this is just it's because, and that's all due to the fudging that's been going on for the last 15, 16 years that these white female teachers have been doing. They'll come into a college situation now, and the kids aren't going to be able to perform. And he's been dealing with this for several years. Seeing kids come in, they can't write a term paper, they can't write a paragraph, and they have dreams of taking majors in things like nursing and science, and they just don't have the mental aptitude to do the work because they've come into school and people have, you know, patted on the head, they've coddled them, they've enabled them, but they haven't prepared them to develop the character and the resolve to go out here and, study and push to do what they need to do. And the whole thing of the academic system, is all about making people feel good. It's all about pacifying people instead of, preparing people for the rigors of academic work. But and that's what he's been telling me, that these kids they can't do it. And I look back at what my other family member has been saying, about the elementary level and how people have just been fudging grades, and I could see a direct correlation. This is why your kids wind up dropping out of high school and dropping out of college, because people fudge the numbers, they tell the parents what they want to hear, and then later on, as the kids trickle up through the education system, they're not prepared for what they need to be prepared for in the take on harder and more challenging work like it is in a college or even in a graduate level. And he says that he sees, almost 50% of the people, they don't have basic literate reading skills, basic writing skills. They have no critical thinking skills whatsoever, no reasoning skills, and they are not equipped and ready for public school. And it all boils down to these white female teachers at the bottom, fudging numbers of kids on the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade level, and sending kids out to higher levels of education that they're not ready for, and not preparing those kids, altogether. And we really have to take a real long, hard look at education in our public schools. And more importantly, we have to start taking, education in our own hands. When I look at your public schools, you can't expect them to do everything. Even when I was a kid, I didn't expect them to do everything. I started doing things on my own when I turned 16, and that was the only way I got out of high school to get my high school diploma. I started reading the books on my own. I started looking at my credits on my own, and I started looking for the classes I needed to take on my own. We have to start preparing kids to start learning that learning on their own is, what they're going to have to do. You're going to have to go out and get your own books, and you're going to have to go out and read on your own. You're going to have to learn how to do stuff on your own, just like you learn the video games. So if the kids can learn the video games, they're going to have to start doing things on their own, because if you expect the public school system to do it, it's just not going to happen. And I say to the parents, if you have very small children, I'm urging you to go out and go get workbooks for your kids. I'm urging you to go out and go get books and read to your children. Just sit down and read with your children, and have them read to you. And I'm urging you to go out and learn things like math and science, or take trips to places like museums and places like in zoos, and really take your child's education in your own hands, because you're the only ones who are going to make sure that your kids get a quality education. You cannot expect a public school system to do it. You can't expect a private school system to do it. You're the one who's going to have to go out here and take this child's education in your own hands, especially in the communities like the African American community. A lot of people, they just send their kids to school and expect them to come back educated. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to supplement it by having your kids go out and learn how, and go out and read on their own. Take them to the library. Take them to take them to museums. Take them all to bookstores. Take them to places where they're going to pick up literature and art, and they can learn about history and science. And because the only way you're going to get an education is if you take it into your own hands. You cannot rely on this public school system. I mean, the education you're going to get is of the lowest quality, because a lot of these teachers, again, they're fudging numbers, and they're giving your child an inflated grade because they want to make a quota for pushing students through. If they graduate enough students, the school gets to stay open and they get to keep their jobs. But the whole thing is that your child winds up losing their education. So you have to take your education in your own hands. And this is one of the reasons why I always try to offer, free ebooks every summer, because I really understand how kids get messed up. I understand how kids, they if they don't keep their academic skills sharp, then what's going to happen is they're going to enter in the next grade, and they're really going to start falling. Because what happens is, in addition to this inflated grades, you have the summer brain training, and then the kids come back, and then they're tested on another level. And in some cases, many kids will wind up in things like special ed just because they didn't take the time to keep their skills sharp. And that's one of the reasons why I offer free ebooks during the summer in young adult fiction. And I've been offering them almost every Saturday on Kindle, because I really want to see kids continue to keep reading. You have to keep reading in order to keep your academic skills sharp and to keep your education sharp. Because what's been happening in these schools is that they've been fudging grades for years. These white female teachers have been doing this for years. We heard about the black female teachers in Atlanta, but this has been going on for white female teachers for years, and it's been given a pass by both blacks and whites, because many of these Negroes have cognitive distortion, and they don't, want to hold this white female teacher at the same level of account as they do this black female teacher. But I say that we really do need black female teachers, because, again, your kid, it's not just about grades and things like that. It's also about kids learning socially that a black female teacher, or a black male teacher, most importantly, is an authority figure. And when they see authority figures of color, they learn how to respect a person of color. And this is what my family member ran into quite a bit, this cognitive distortion, where she, as an authority figure, was not regarded and respected, but these white female teachers could just say anything, and these kids would pretty much obey and submit. And that showed, a really very detrimental social education to your children, because if they're learning how to submit to white people and defer to white people and see them as authority figures, then how are they going to learn how to respect and regard black authority figures like their mothers or their fathers? It's a very dangerous precedent that is instilled in children at an early age. And this is why I really believe that children need to see black teachers and black professionals in their communities, and that we really need to start focusing on developing black female and black male teachers, so that kids can understand that there are black people with this type of authority, with this type of position, and that they are for their own good. Because when you start seeing these people as authority figures, and you start seeing these people in positions of power, you you start to see yourself in the same type of position, and you start to see yourself with the same type of authority figure and the same type of power as you grow up. You don't start seeing white people as the only ones with power and the only ones with as authority figures. And this is something that is very important. And because there is more to an education than an academic one. You also have a social education, and a lot of African Americans don't think about how all these components come together towards developing a functional and healthy child. You have to have not only an academic education but a social education, and you have to learn how to see African Americans in positions of power and positions of authority in order for you to have a sense of community and a sense of family. Um, when it comes down to this African American community, yeah, we really do need to do something about, you know, these white female teachers, because they're really doing damage to your kids long term. They're doing term damage to your child's education. A lot of times, again, all they want to do is make the numbers, and they will fudge numbers and push kids through to do this, and they do it on a regular basis. And in most cases, many Negroes will just sit there and give it a pass, and they'll look at things with black females and say, "Oh, the Atlanta teaching scandal," but no, this has been going on across the country for years. I'd say even decades, and not a single person even blinks about it. Just like these white female teachers will sit there and they will fudge the numbers, especially on black boys, pushing them into special ed so that they can get more money for their schools. A lot of people don't know that when it comes down to for every special ed case, you get more money for your school, you get more funding for your school, and the easiest way for you to get funding is through black boys, because in most cases, the white female teacher will tell the black mother that her boy has ADHD or he has some sort of issue, and what she will do, because she has cognitive distortion, is believe this about her son instead of spanking him or giving him some discipline. And she will put him on psychotropic drugs, and she will put a mark on her child, because once you get put in special ed, you're pretty much screwed as it comes down to education. You're headed down a super substandard road for education, and the school makes money off of you while you're on this road getting this substandard, poor quality education. And you have to really watch out for these pitfalls, because they're all over the place, and they like to take African Americans and put them in the pitfalls. And this is something that I learned from my family member who worked in elementary school firsthand. She sat down and talked to me about these things, and I'm talking to you guys about it so that you can go out and watch out for the pitfalls and watch out for things, and get involved with your publics and your school boards and stuff like that, so that they won't fudge the numbers on your kids. Get involved with your class. I mean, go down there every once in a while and see what's going on. Sit down with your kids again and read to them, or have them read to you, so you can find out what direction their education is going in. Every effort that you take to help your kids is going to help them move forward. And what you want to do is, take this education in your own hands, and not just trust people in a board of education or a department of education to do it, because the only person who can educate you is you. And if you don't take your education in your own hands, you're leaving yourself to be taken advantage of by people who are only out to meet their numbers and meet a quota. That's all I have to say for this video. If you want some great fiction for your kids, head over to Amazon.com. You can click the link in the description box. I have a lot of great young adult books for tweens and teens, like the ISIS series. A lot of these books are just 99 cents on the Kindle, and on Saturdays I usually offer a free ebook so that kids will have something to read. Have a lot of also books in paperback. The prices are pretty fair, so there's a lot of great material on my Amazon page. You can just click the link in the description box. Again, that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.